Oh, I have a cautionary tale to tell involving this Watkins 45 Dominator amplifier. When it came in, the owner said that, oh, I smelled smoke and it just stopped working. Okay, so the first thing I did was I took out the fuse on the front panel here, and I noticed that it was blown. Okay, well that happens. When a valve starts to go, it's going to pull something and then the fuse goes, protecting the inside of the amplifier from further ruin. So I thought to myself, well, this is probably going to be a pretty straightforward job. But like all things, when an amp just dies, I like to pull it apart and check individual transformers to start with to make sure that there's nothing costly necessary. You don't want to put a new set of valves in it only to find that you've wasted money on new valves because there's a diode that is shorted. Long story short, I'm digressing. Now, I put 18 volts into the primary. Once I took it all apart and that, I put 18 volts into the primary, expecting to see about 30 on the secondary. Didn't see that. I thought, right, okay, so maybe I'm crazy. Cleaned off a lot of the contacts, and I think, okay, well, if there's a drain on the secondary, it's possible that, that there's something bad happening with capacitors or diodes or something. Maybe there's a short in a capacitor and it's just pulling all the current away. So I undid everything. So now what I was left with was just a transformer all on its own with electricity going into it. So with 18 volts going in, I would expect to see about 30 on the other side, no load, just completely doing its own thing, still nothing. So I starts to think to myself, there's definitely a problem with this power transformer. Okay, so I risked something. I risked upping the voltage a little bit more. I thought, I want to see what happens if I put 120 volts into it. So I did that. Now, 120 volts, this power transformer should cope just fine. It's designed for 230, 240 volts, so shouldn't hurt it, right? So I put in 120 volts, and I was only looking at a volt or so on the secondary. I'm expecting to see at that point close to 200 volts. So something tells me that, yeah, definitely not right. The transformer was quite warm, even at 18 volts, and that's a sign telling you that something's a bit funny. So I turned my back for a second, and I think, right, I'm going to measure again, because just in case I'm a little bit crazy. And then I noticed, no volts, not at all. So what had happened was the fuse had gone again. So even at 120 volts, the transformer just couldn't take it, and that was with nothing attached to it. So at that stage, even if there is something wrong with the rest of the circuit here, the power transformer is definitely Dodgeville. Now, the cautionary part of this tale. That fuse that I took out at the very beginning when I said, aha, okay, this led me down whatever garden path, that was a 2 amp fuse. The design calls for a 1 amp fuse. So someone has put a 2 amp fuse where they should have put a 1 amp fuse. Now what this means is that maybe, if a dying valve had popped that fuse in the beginning, if there had been a 1 amp fuse in there, the power transformer would have been saved, because that is what a fuse does. It sacrifices itself to save other components. It's like 50p or a quid, whatever. If you think that by upping the fuse value, you're going to stop it from blowing fuses, that is just the wrong approach. You want the fuse to blow if there's a problem. And if it does blow, get it sorted. Don't just think, do this, because it's going to be expensive. So this amp, if we're going to get it working again, is going to be a lot to repair. Definitely going to need new valves, so you're looking at, 40 odd, 50, 60 quid, depending on what you want to spend. The transformer, don't know yet. I doubt you'll find a direct replacement for it, but fortunately it can be rewound. But we're looking at a few hundred quid. And why are we looking at a few hundred quid? Because at some point someone decided not to read the label. This is bad. And it ends up costing you a lot of money when you do things like that. So anytime you have a problem with an amp, get it seen to. What's it going to cost you in the end? With this amp, it had 3 original Mullards in it. When I say original, 3 old Mullards, and a 4th sort of odd fella out. What does that tell you? That at some stage, one valve went dodgy, so it was replaced, leaving the other old ones to age even further. So further advice from there is like, if one valve goes, just replace them all. What's it going to cost you in the end when you start fiddling with it and your power transformer goes? You're going to want to buy new valves before you buy a new power transformer, or deal because it is gutting. It's no fun. I think that pretty much exhausts all that I can say about this. Oh, I could say more. You know I could say more, but yeah, it's a bit sad, but hey, that's life.